Welcome back to the Social Seller Podcast with Conor Paulsen, where we interview the world's highest quality communicators, professionals, business owners, creatives, and everything in between. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're a high quality communicator, there's a good chance you're living a lot happier life, but you're also bringing those opportunities into your life almost like a magnet. My guarantee is that on this show, we only interview people that I, one, look up to, and two, that I know are going to continue to kill the game for years to come, and I want to make sure they're on your radar. But what I've learned is by asking the best questions, we get the best responses, and that's what the highest quality communicators, our social sellers, are all about. Let's hop inside to the Social Seller Podcast. Welcome back to the Social Seller Podcast with Conor Paulsen. Today we have a special guest. This is George Rodriguez, a former quarterback, and I'm excited to dive in. Now, you are currently in a specialized type of law enforcement. You come from a background in health and fitness, coaching, training people, creating unreal content. You have a bit of a James Bond brand created, whether you know it or not, and I love it, and I'm excited to be able to go in and interview the young Daniel Craig right now. And I know you're doing a lot of cool things, but most importantly on the real estate side, and you were investing in a lot of cool areas and places that I have not dabbled in yet, and I know a lot of us are all excited to learn why does real estate make sense, but for some of us it's confusing and intimidating to get into.
Right.
I would love to be able to dive into some. So George, thank you for being here, man.
Appreciate the invite. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this day since I found out you wanted me on the show, man. So appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I love it. Let's hop right in. Something that you do really well, and you grew up, I guess let's give some context.
Sure.
So you grew up here in Southern California.
Correct.
It wasn't technically San Diego.
It's a small border town, about an hour and a half east of San Diego. People barely know about it. It's barely on the map, but it's El Centro, Calexico, California. So if you guys are from the Valley, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's a completely different world in San Diego, But I did spend a lot of time of my childhood up here. Just as you mentioned, a little bit of background in sports. I was out here almost every weekend just playing, other teams, basketball, football, baseball. Definitely spent a lot of time here, and I got to see both worlds. That border town with 95% probably the population being Hispanic, and then coming up here and just pretty diverse. So yeah, got a good little upbringing in both worlds.
What was different about your upbringing? So if we lined up 100 Valley kids next to you, and you played sports, I don't know if you continued to play after, or I know you had some opportunities too. What separated you, whether it was on the athletic side, but why have you probably been able to do more than the average? What separated you in your childhood?
Man, well, for me, I feel like if you dove deep and you took sports seriously, and as you know, you're an athlete yourself, just the discipline, the hard work, that comes from playing a team sport, that teaches you so many lessons, man, just about life, I feel like. And for me, it happened that I was in these leadership roles. I was the captain of, the baseball team and the point guard in basketball, so always with the ball. Football was my passion, so I was a quarterback. I was naturally better at receiver, but I wanted to be in charge, and I wanted the ball in my hands every play. And that's kind of the person I am too. I like being in charge of things, and if I'm gonna fail, it's gonna be on my own terms, But I want the opportunity to have the ball in my hands, like I said. So all those things combined, man, I feel like give me a pretty good advantage over just an average Joe. It comes down to mindset, and that's what sports brought into my life at a very young age, and still carry that on with me till this day.
I love it. And if we were to think back, George, how young, what age were you when you decided that you wanted to be a quarterback, right? Because there's 12 positions on the field, right? And why did you decide that? Do you remember what it might have been tied to? You wanted to be in charge?
Yeah, I liked, I'll take it back a little bit. So my first year, maybe two, I was a really good receiver, really good. But like I said, I grew up playing baseball as well. I was a pitcher, shortstop, so I had a pretty good arm. And I eventually just wanted to pursue quarterback, and it came naturally to me. But what I loved the most about playing quarterback was being in that huddle and just having 10 other dudes looking at you and like waiting for that direction, you know, and like, all right, you have to make the levers out of them, you know, like you're the man in charge of that huddle and basically every play. So I love that feeling, and it's something that I knew I probably could have excelled a little bit more in another position, but I didn't care. I wanted to be in that role.
I love it. It's almost as if you knew it would take more work because you weren't made out for it, right? It wasn't like you were gifted in every specific way to solely be, you know, a QB, because we could go down the list of like what they say the average NFL QB is, right? But you decided something you wanted, and then you started to take action in every way possible. And the point that I wanted to kind of get to, and I love your story because a lot of these things for all of us are ingrained, I think, in our childhood, but we forget to look back at like, well, why did we want that? What really was it? Because when I think back to like the quarterback, you know, days, I think at the time it was either going to be like a lineman, tight end, a receiver, but I wasn't quick enough. I could get like speed, and so anyway, deciding like, no, that was going to be it. And then in a 5-step drop during competitions, you'd have to like read defenses, right? That was always a struggle to me. Like it was anything athletic or like throwing the ball, strong suit.
Right.
Now, I love that you share it, and it applies to a lot of the other things I'm sure you have and you've done in life. How do you think this got you into the type of law enforcement? Can you talk about what type of law enforcement you're in or what you can share?
Yeah. So I don't want to dive too much into my line of work, but I am in law enforcement. I'm on a basically like a specialized unit, doing higher end kind of like SWAT stuff. So that's basically what I do. But what got me to that point was I grew up in the fitness and health world from college to a year after college. Before I've been doing my job now for like 10 years. So prior to that, I was always a trainer. That was my go-to. And one of my clients I was training at the time, her husband actually, at that point in time, he was doing what I do now. So she was the one that sparked my interest in the law enforcement route, and she kind of knew me. When you're a trainer, man, you spend so much time with somebody, and you're almost like a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a mentor, a coach. You're everything in one. And it's funny, people don't even pay you for that. You know, they're paying you to get in physical shape, but you're helping out in so many other ways. Anyway, she sparked that interest in me at probably I was a sophomore in college, maybe a junior, but we're young, you know, we're 19, 20 years old. We don't really know what we're gonna do with our life. And I started thinking about it, and I started looking into different, you know, salaries and benefits, retirement. And the one point that stuck out to me was just, well, I've been in sports my whole life. I've been in a locker room, in a team setting, and this is the closest thing that I'll probably ever get to in a professional world. So for me, it made sense to go that route, law enforcement route, and going through multiple academies and doing, you know, rigorous physical activity and stuff like that, and the shooting and the running. It's been fun. It's been a fun last 10 years, but I want to, at some point, or hopefully sooner than later, I want to transition to just the next phase, you know, in my life where I'm not owned per se for so much time. I mean, if you have your 9 to 5, you know what I'm talking about. You're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week at some points, you know, and I feel that time is the most valuable thing we have in this world, and I'm trying to make the most out of every minute I got on this earth.
I love that, and I relate on so many levels. The one right there is just the trading time for money thing, and it's not that it's wrong to do it. Pretty much, even today, like up until this point, I still am in some capacity. What excites me though is getting into investments so that you don't have to start trading time for money, right? You can put your money in certain places that allow you to, and then, like you had said, the big picture and where you and me definitely align. And we're using different vehicles to get there, but it's some version of a freedom lifestyle, right? Exactly. And to you and me, we value time heavily. And freedom to me is definitely like time. How do we want to spend it? Not giving up financial, you know, income, right? How have you, when did you start investing? Mm-hmm. What age were you? Were you still a trainer? Did you?
Basically, So I was right when I started my career. Right, this was 10 years ago. I was living with a girlfriend, and we break up, and now I'm at this point. I'm 22 years old, fresh into my law enforcement career. We break up. I basically leave the apartment we have, and I remember 2 days I crashed with a buddy, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm a grown ass man. I'm sleeping on this couch right now, and I have a career, like no financial debt. Luckily, I took care of like the loans that I had for college, and no credit card debt or any other debt. So I was good in that regard. But I remember thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing right now on this couch? So my best friend from college, his name's also George. Shout out George Bukes. He had just gotten into real estate, and we talked that like maybe like a day or two after. I had this little moment at my buddy's couch, and he was like, man, I think you're set up to buy a spot. So yeah, 22 years old, I bought my first property over by San Diego State. It was a little 2-bedroom, 2-bath, you know, perfect for a starter, a condo. And yeah, man, like that was the start of it. I got a really good roommate in there with me, and helping me pay my mortgage. Obviously, you know, I wasn't charging a crazy amount of rent, but it was perfect. She was paying half my rent, and I was paying the other part of the mortgage, and then that just kind of made me realize too that all the benefits that come from being a homeowner. At the end of the year, pretty big tax return, you know, so things that you can, you know, chalk up to just like owner expenses that you can claim at the end of the year. So all those little things just added up to me being pretty fascinated by the real estate investments and the possibilities and opportunities that it provides.
I love it. So for that first property, you're 22 years old, you get a 2-bedroom on a college campus. So
Yeah.
was that reasoning because the price, you know, a little more competitive for you to get in? And like, just to give context, how much were you earning a month? Were you at
Right.
5K, 6K a month, where your buddy goes, hey, you know, you're maybe in a position to own a property in San Diego, right? It's not
Right.
like cheap real estate out here.
Right. So something I just want to clarify for a lot of people, because even my friends at this point, they're in their 30s, and people are still under the misconception that you need 20% down to buy your first property. You know, it's not true. So what we did was, yeah, it was pretty competitive because it was in a pretty good area over by like Del Cerro, San Diego State, and I didn't have all this liquid cash just ready to dump. So we did a FHA loan, first time home buyer loan, and it was a 3.5. So on I don't even remember how much it cost, but for the sake of the argument, let's just say I put down 25 grand. It was 3.5, you know, and I didn't set up myself for failure with getting rid of all my liquidity. So that made the most sense, and there's all kinds of little tricks and trades that come with real estate as well. If you know the right people also don't want to pay the PMI that comes with not putting down 20%, right? But the loan officer that we had, pretty good guy, he basically got me on it's called a lender paid PMI, and they just base that on if you have good credit score, like all these different things that add up to if you qualify for it. So I didn't even have to pay PMI, and I was on an FHA loan. And for me, that it just made all the sense financially, and that's what allowed me the opportunity to buy my first home at 22 years old.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
There's not many people that can do that, and then to do it in San Diego County is wild too. So you said you didn't use all of it. Wasn't like you saved up, you had 25K in the bank, and then you went and spent it, and now you get to start the process of owning your first property, right? So was that 50%, or did you have 40K and then you're like, all right, 25, this is enough of a cushion for me? How much? Yeah, do you remember like what that range was?
I remember, yeah, like let's say I put down 25,000, right? And then I knew that I had to buy furniture and beds and couches, TVs, So that's another 10 grand right there. So I gave myself a little cushion. Obviously, you want to have a good nest egg in your savings account at all times. You don't know what the hell's gonna happen tomorrow. So yeah, I still gave myself a little cushion, but I knew I was taking a risk, you know. But what's the saying? You have to be willing to risk something for a high reward. And so for me, it was worth it, man. I mean, yeah, San Diego's a pretty expensive place to live, but I knew that I was going to be here for the long run, and why not invest in myself rather than be paying someone else's rent?
Amen. Hey, I agree. So your belief going into your first property is, you know, this is what, almost a decade ago?
Yeah. Yep.
So what's cool is you have wisdom here. We're just talking about the beginning. Was your mindset going in is, I'm going to live here for a year and lease out the other bedroom and then get out, flip it? Did you want to flip, lease it long term?
Well, I knew I needed to be there at least for 2 years because I didn't want to pay capital gains. You pay capital gains if you're there for less than 2 years. So I knew I was at least going to do 2 years, which I did. And then, yeah, I mean, it just came to the point where I was 24, 25, and you want to be cool and you want to be downtown, and so I ended up buying my next property, just a small 1 bed, 1 bath, pretty good square footage for downtown San Diego. After that, so that kind of like set me up for my next purchase, and I still have that place. It's just actually down the street right here. We can probably throw a baseball down. Well, probably not. We don't want to do a baseball, but you know what I meant. And
we probably could actually get one there. That's a competition too.
Beautiful place, by the way. We're downtown San Diego. We have Petco to our right and Coronado Bridge right here. So thanks for having us here.
Thank you, brother. No, and I love going into these because I've never asked the questions in this regard. Now, a lot of these questions are really just selfish in the sense of like, I'm curious. Now, I know real estate's going to be a part of my life. Because of the passive aspect and because of how many families we can help, families, college students that might not be able to afford living on campus otherwise, and maybe couldn't, for whatever life reason, couldn't afford a vehicle, but being able to live with you was, you know,
Sure.
When we start to associate the why to the bigger picture, the janitor that works at a high school, they don't view it like that, right? They view it as, I'm going in and I'm cleaning the workplace environment for the next problem solvers of the world, right? And they attach it to some bigger why, and you definitely have that within the freedom. Probably my number one priority in life too. And so what did your first couple properties, looking back, what was the biggest mistake you made after you got into your second one?
That's a good question. I guess just you need to be picky with who your tenants are and just doing your due diligence with background checks and credit scores, and you don't want some, you know, just dude that has a 400 credit score and you don't know it. But if that's the case, chances are he's gonna default on his payments, you know, and then putting you in a bit of a bind. So for me, I guess what I've learned is take my time to pick the right tenant. And I also mess around a little bit with the short-term rentals. Versus the longer term, and it's a great play if you're trying to make a quick buck. There's more money to be made, but your place also takes a bit of way more of a beating actually if you're overturning it like that for short-term rentals. So right now I have someone in there long term, and I kind of like it that way. They treat the place as their own, and they take care of it, you know, and they maintain it in good shape. So that's where I'm at right now.
I like it, man, and thank you for the context. You make it easy for like any of us to understand, because I'm not like a real estate professional, but
and neither am I.
Yeah, but you're over here learning.
Yeah.
You're spending your weekends going to classes, traveling, going to seminars, to workshops. Luckily, they're back, they're out, and that's definitely a huge level for me too.
For sure.
That is some of the best networking you can do. Now, how much do you learn and how much can you act on? Yeah, you get hyped and pumped going to these events, but it's like, how much do you actually act on? I've found that the long term is usually the networking and the circles that you make.
Exactly.
And those people. And on that note, this has honestly been what I've wanted to ask more than anything else. You connect yourself and surround yourself with influential people, right? For whatever reason on the outside, someone could say, yeah, George, it's like it's all those good looking people. It's people that work out, they're fit, they eat acai bowls, or like, and then they're professionals too. Like they all have whatever going for them. And my guess is they're probably not all from here, right? Like San Diego, it attracts people from all over.
Yeah.
What has enabled you to be purposeful with your environments and your circles?
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up this point, man. I got a little just note that I wrote for myself, and then I'll just read it real quick. But it says, yeah, like I have different investments here and there, but I feel like at the end of the day, the most important investment you can make is in yourself and in your relationships and how you nurture them. So for me, going back to my younger days, I just feel like I attract good people in my life, and that just comes off by the energy you put out, right? You put out good energy, you're gonna surround yourself with good energy people, like-minded people, and yeah, man, I've always been, by the grace of God, just been a natural born leader, and people want to be around me, they want to hang out with me and go to the gym with me and do all these things with me, and then you start picking each other's brains, and next thing you know, I mean, you're hanging out, you're going to dinners, and yeah, you're rubbing elbows with some other people that you wouldn't have met if you hadn't put yourself in those environments, those situations, But yeah, I'm very lucky, man. I value my friendships very greatly, and I do invest a lot of effort, like I said, a lot of energy into them, into nurturing them, checking in on my friends constantly. I feel like people don't do that enough. You kind of just take certain friendships for granted, but I always try to make my presence known, whether it's a text or, a phone call, FaceTime call once in a while, but just let your friends know that you're there.
I love that, man. And that's something I definitely want to improve on. That's something I am working on.
We get carried away with just how busy life is, and we all know that, our friends around our age groups are getting married, having kids, but, the sign of a good friendship is when you can I just hit up one of my buddies, Terrence Tucker. I haven't talked to him in like 2 years maybe, but I just thought about him, and I'm like, hey man, just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I miss you, I love you, I hope you're doing well. He didn't even text me back, but it's all good. I know he'll text me back eventually, and he just, at that moment, he knew that I was thinking about him, and that's, that'll make somebody feel a certain kind of way.
I love that. You're exactly right. What has enabled you to be a good human from a young age, to be able, because good attracts good, right? When you're putting good out in the world, and you're coming from a place of like, damn, there's enough pie for everyone, right?
Sure.
Whether it's athletics, like the best deserve to be on the field, or anything in between. Where did you learn to be good? And I'm guessing in your childhood is one of your parents.
Absolutely, man. My upbringing. I feel like parenting plays such a role in someone's life, in anybody's life. But I was blessed with two great parents, loving home, and my mother was probably the person that I looked up to the most. She was who gave me my drive and my motivation. I got that grit from her, my character from her. And she recently passed about 1.5 years ago. But man, so many lessons that I learned from that lady, and I will forever be grateful to her. So yeah, like I grew up in a pretty strict kind of like Christian home, and it was kind of funny because I remember like being, I don't know, like 6, 7 years old, bunch of kids playing around, playing football on the street, and we had a fence, and I'm just looking over the fence, and my mom wouldn't let me out just because she was always so worried that something would happen to me. And little did she know, like I was probably the best kid out there, like the best little athlete, and like I wasn't even playing. But yeah, that was the type of mom she was, just very super protective and just always my best interest at heart. And missed her very dearly, but that's life, and you just have to take the good with the bad, and now I just kind of live my life and try and make her proud and honor her, live for her. So I would definitely say that she played a huge role in who I am today, and she will always play that role, be my biggest source of motivation.
Yeah. When is the time that when's a memorable time that your mom taught you a life lesson that will always hold true to you?
There was, handful of times, but I'll just speak on the last the last couple months. She got diagnosed with cancer, and she basically was gone in a matter of like 3-4 months.
Wow.
And the lady never once complained, bro. She was a woman of huge faith, and she just never complained. She took it in stride, and she tried to fight this thing as much as she could. And truthfully, one of the I haven't shared this with too many people, maybe one or two, but one of the toughest moments of my life was we're sitting at the doctor's office, and at this point, I know that chances are pretty bleak, and the doctor's basically telling her, like, it's basically like chemo, or like if you don't want to go through chemo, I mean, that's basically it. You know, you're gonna start dying slowly, which she already was. But I'm standing behind her, rubbing her shoulders, and the doctor's basically asking her what does she want to do? She's just, and my mom just kind of being the warrior little fighter that she is, she's like, no, I want to keep fighting, I want to keep going, I want to get to meet my grandchildren. And that just broke me, man. That moment right there broke me, because I knew where the cancer was already, and it was already at the very late stages. So that moment just broke me, and it brought this realization that the time is now. You know, like people, we tend to think that we have years and years of life ahead, but she was 60 years old, and I feel like she still had 20, 30 maybe good years in her, and to be taken away in a matter of 2 months, no one's really ever prepared for that. But just like that little moment, and then seeing her go through if you've ever dealt with a parent or a loved one, relative, friend that's gone through cancer, you just know how it eats them up, you know, from the inside out and vice versa. And just seeing her in that shape, not being able to, she couldn't communicate the last couple of days, you know, there was nothing there, but I knew that her pain was producing something for me, you know, something to keep carrying on. And like I said, it's that fire and that drive and that motivation for me to try and live the best life that I can. And in the process of doing that, I'll be making her proud. But yeah, man, just life is short, and we gotta make the most out of every single day that we're on this earth, because we don't know in the moment's notice we won't be here anymore. And we want to be, at least I want to be, you know, in a spot where I leave with a positive impact on certain people in this world, to whatever degree that is. But I owe all of that to my mom.
Yeah, she sounds like an incredible human.
She was, yeah.
And a fighter, man. And you definitely have that in you, and I can see it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your friends, family know that too, and your siblings. I'm sure they have some too. Yeah. And how does that play today? How has that made you a stronger individual in the last year and a half? Now, I'm sure in the first year that's harder to see, but maybe now it's started to paint a picture of she's with you.
Yeah, of course, she's always with me. I think it just made me focus more on being present. That's another thing that we don't really, I feel like we kind of tend to take it for granted, but if you're present, you're focused on this moment at hand. And I'm usually just like you. I know you're very well organized. I started calendar this morning. You have a million things going on, but you being disciplined and organized allows you to carry on all these things throughout your days. So for me, same thing, right? Like I'm organized. I use my calendar for everything, and phone calendar, planner, like everything. I got a big calendar at work, just because I want to be, you know, if I know I'm going to be with you today for an hour, I want to give you my full and undivided attention and be present for you. If I know I have something coming up at 3:30, a phone call or something, I want to be in my best mental state for that. So running around doing 100 things at once, but being organized and having a plan helps. But just going back to your point, what did it teach me? It just taught me to be more present and be more in the now. And one of my favorite sayings right now is, I told you this the other day, Oscar, is be where your feet are. I just want to be present. I want to be in this moment. And that's the only moment that truly matters.
I love that. Be where your feet are. That's a good one too. And I love the simplicity of it's so true. We catch our minds. A lot of us lean towards the future and a lot of us lean towards the past. The unfortunate part of both is we can't control either.
Yep.
And true love and happiness is right now.
Exactly.
And that's again why in meditation we focus on breath or yoga. There's so many, but it's breath because we can't focus on a breath in the future or a breath from yesterday or even a minute ago, right?
Exactly.
It's only now. And it helps us tap into that presence, which I'm always looking to do better at. What do you, personal question, when you have these calendars and you're a fellow busy professional, I don't want to be careful with the word busy, but how do you ensure that it's sustainable, man? Like how do you find rest? And when things are going nonstop and life starts to feel like, damn, I'm excited still for the future, but like I don't have a grasp on it like I maybe would like or like I used to.
Yeah. I feel for me, I'm a creature of habit, and just having that routine down, man. Like my Monday through Fridays are, unless I'm doing something different for work or certain meetings or whatever, I know exactly where I'm gonna be. I see you walking out of the gym when I'm coming in at 6 a.m. You already got your workout in, but consistency, right? So for me, just staying consistent with my routine and having that morning routine, take your time, that time to yourself, to start the day in a good mindset, good flow of day. Having that morning routine, and then I also have a night routine, and then in the middle, that's where I just pack everything in. But I make sure to keep peace in me, man, because if we don't have peace, I feel like things just kind of like start going sideways, and you get carried away by the world and what you have going on. But for me, I always have a reminder to protect my peace, and by staying in my routine and my structure and in my discipline, I maintain that peace. So that's how I keep a hold and maintain this grasp of life that we're talking about.
To seem like you can be in so many things and then keep things progressing, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the stat is something like the average billionaire has 25 or 30 streams of income, right? So now let's boil that down. Let's say maybe that's 20 different organizations of some capacity, right? They've created it in ways that they can step out and the organization continues to grow. That's a wild concept. We're talking at a very minimal scale to some degree, but for anyone that's been busy, which is a human feeling, right? We can feel overwhelmed. The way to optimize it or to make it efficient for us is to start to schedule. And at times it can feel a little robotic. I don't know if you've ever felt like that, where it's just all the time, but I'm also dependent on it. It leaves my mind a lot more open and present later in the day sometimes.
Yeah. I used to want to change that about me because I am so robotic and routine oriented that I know, like in the past, some girls that I've dated probably don't like it too much, but hey man, like I know I'm going to the gym, I can't see it to like whatever, I'm busy, like I have this going on, and I used to want to change that to some degree and just be more, I'll go with the flow kind of guy, but go with the flow kind of guy is not going to get me to where I want to be, so yeah, I feel like just that discipline and that structure in life is so important.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And you mentioned on attracting women and how it can be a little mundane, or at times it can feel like, shit, like the sustainable way. And honestly, what makes me happy is like going to bed between 7:30 and like 8:15, like being in bed out by that time, right? That's not appealing to most people our age, even like through our 30s, but you start to figure out like the foods we eat. When we eat certain healthy foods, it starts to like over time we can start to feel like a little better. Maybe our brain works a little better. I show up better on calls. And these all somehow come into play. I don't know the rabbit hole that I was going to take that one down. I do. What is your take? You haven't been married in your life, have you?
I haven't.
What does that if that woman exists in the world, what do you currently envision? Because I know you have such strong filters.
That's
You are a
fucking-
disciplined mofo.
That's
But
a
what
$1 million question.
what does
Yeah.
that? What does she probably
We're all, I
invoke?
mean, we're all looking for her. All of my single men out there, they know that it's. I don't know, man.
What do you
I'm looking for a
prioritize
unicorn.
more than
I'm
other
looking
men?
for that unicorn. Basically, I whenever I start dating somebody, I feel like the number one question I ask myself: could this be the mother of my children? And I think that just goes back to the type of mother that I had, you know, and how she raised me. And if I don't see that right off the get-go, then I don't. I want someone that's motivated, that's driven, passionate about life, loves to travel. But most importantly, at the end of the day, man, you're in a relationship as well, right?
Yep.
And I see you guys hanging out, going on trips, and having all kinds of fun. And you just want to date your best friend, you know?
Yeah.
But there has to be, you know, your morals and your values and your outlook in life have to line up in order for that to happen. And yeah, if you're dating the wrong person, if you're putting yourself in these situations where you're meeting the wrong kind of girls at the wrong places, then yeah, it's gonna keep failing. And for me now, yeah, I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of ready, you know, just to meet somebody and settle down and start that, you know, the family life and all that. But
Yeah.
but at the same time, I'm not just going to settle for mediocrity. So I'm still hoping that my unicorn's out there.
Dude, she absolutely is. Absolutely, guarantee it. No, I mean it, like 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to hear the
No.
other crazy thing? There's a buddy, shout out Brendan Giles. He studied some mathematics at one point in class. He was an engineer. He went to a different college, but one time we were together at an entrepreneurial event, or I don't even know what we were doing, but he brings up, and this would be like a typical way for him to think, but he's like, there's a mathematical statistic that actually shows we have, and I'm going to butcher these numbers, this was a while ago, it's something like 100 to 150, and it could be as low as 15, but there's somewhere between 15 and 100 ideal, like in every check box somewhere in the world,
Right.
out of almost 8 billion, that fits all of the like the right opposites that we need, right? So typically in those long-term relationships, you see that they balance each other out, right? And that was also one cool fact that my grandpa told me. He's like, it was grandpa, and then also some ratings. But he's like, when you meet that one, he's like, I don't think it's really like the movies and things. Like, I think it's more of a best friend thing.
Yeah.
Like your heart doesn't
It
really
takes
go all
time,
the way.
man. It takes
does.
work.
Yeah.
And yeah, physical attraction is huge, and that's the main reason why you approach somebody in the first place, right?
Right.
And
Because it does speak a lot to the individual, depending
Right.
on how they've
true.
created them.
But yeah, I mean, any relationship takes work, and if that's going to be your lifelong partner, man, you better believe that there's going to be a lot of work involved. And I'm no dating expert, but yeah, work and communication, I feel like are the two most important things when it comes to making a relationship last. So
Amen. Amen. And I love it because she's got to be right. He, she, whoever that is, just making sure it's right. But having the full trust and faith. And I'm saying full, whether it's to the God, all the gods, the universe, that we know it's going to happen. Like that she absolutely exists and it's going to come into your life at the right time. And any day that she doesn't, it's not a missed day. It's honestly just build more anticipation because it's like, it's coming. Like it's... When we know that, then they somehow just show up in our lives like quick.
It always happens like that,
Right? It's with that unruling faith that like I just know it with conviction, like in your mind. It's like when you lose your wallet and you go looking everywhere for it. And you wake up on a Sunday morning or whenever, and you're like frantic, like, shit, this is just going to be a hassle. I do not want to start my week having to call all these, get these things, and you go and you look everywhere and you end up like not finding it. When you have that belief. Now that you've looked in every place and you've already committed to like, all right, you know what? It wasn't meant for me. That wallet wasn't, for whatever reason, I'm going to have to call him in.
Right.
9 times out of 10, I end up finding that wallet and it's after. Now, a handful of times I've already canceled the card, so it's no good. But that belief, it's knowing you're going to get a parking spot. Now, I don't know how effectively that works, like from the secret, but that belief, long term, big picture wise, I think applies a lot more than like, my garden's not going to have any weeds in it this morning. You wish, and like Tony talks about, go outside. There's weeds.
Right. Yeah, I'm not too worried about it, man. Everything at the right time that's meant for you, And one thing I will say is I do remember being very young, like 15, 16, we all have this picture in our head, right, of what your life's gonna look like, and I remember by 25 I'm gonna be married and probably with one kid. And I'm nowhere near that. Obviously, that ship sailed.
Live in San Diego, baby.
Yeah. I guess Peter Pan, city out here, San Diego.
I like that, Peter Pan city. You're probably right, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of a joke, but I've been here 4, going on 5, and I definitely see the realities to it. But incredible people, all in all. And as long as you have these filters like you do, you attract incredible people in your life that are also hungry, because a lot of people aren't from San Diego, so you come out here and you're hungry to create a life, get into real estate, get into investments, and it seems like everyone's kind of doing it at a higher level. Now, you grew up kind of in this area, but it's a level up from, small town Iowa, and it feels good, right? Like going to the gym in the morning, it feels good to be around other people. We like that mild competitiveness.
Yeah, just seeing others working hard, just pushes you.
Yeah.
That's why like COVID was kind of weird, just because we didn't have that human interaction even to this day, things are kind of awkward, right? Like, you don't know if to give someone a handshake or a dab or, much less a hug, because people they want to keep that, 6-foot distance from you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like we need this human interaction and just vibe off each other's energy and drive and passion to be better every day. We definitely need that, yeah.
Surround ourselves with the people we want to be like. It's the easiest way to feel happier.
100%.
Surround yourself with happy people, right? I'm going to go on some quick fire questions as we're getting close to circling these up. Now, I know you and me both follow certain names, Ed Milet, and I really like that you actually featured Ben Newman. So Ben's an incredible dude, and he's close to Andy Frisella. He represents St. Louis, and he does some cool coaching with Alabama. We worked with him a few years ago. I'm curious, who right now is your number one? Like, who do you listen to, consume the most of?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. I just attended this little real estate entrepreneur kind of seminar here in San Diego, put on by Ken Clothier, who's a very successful investor, developer here locally, and actually, I think he's from Florida initially, but his circle is very impressive people, and he brought on some big hitters to this seminar, and one of them was Ed. Ed, I've been listening to him for a handful of years now, and I even threw it on my story on Sunday, how he's probably the biggest mentor I've had the last 2-3 years, maybe longer now, without him even knowing it, and I'm a big reader, I'm a big podcaster, Audible, and I listen to his stuff religiously. There's a handful of people that I listen to, but he's my top guy, man. I just like the way that guy carries himself, the way he, his passion, his drive to be successful, but at the same time he has that faith at the forefront, and there's no denying it. You see it. So listening to him speak on Saturday was actually really, really cool, as well as Jesse Itzler. I don't know if you know who Jesse
awesome,
Itzler,
man.
but yeah, that's another just huge, high energy motivator guy, and obviously that he got to be to where he's at now with that kind of energy that he brings to every room. He filled the room with so much energy. But yeah, man, it's just like you said earlier, like who you surround yourself with, who you listen to, what you see on a daily basis. I'm a big believer in all that.
What we consume, baby. Everything. We get the choice between music or a podcast or an audiobook. Now, I'm not here to say music's wrong. I've just found I'm more productive if I listen to music in the morning to get me hyped in the gym and things, but after that, it's podcasts, audiobooks, during the workday. That's probably not true for everyone, but those little things, how can we consume, even if it's 5 minutes, it's not looking, it's easy to do, right? Like in the car, just playing an audiobook or a podcast, having someone, and you start to just fill your mind with someone that can plant the seeds right? Because I think so much of it that I'm realizing is we surround ourselves with successful people, and then all of a sudden what happens is you look at the guy that has $100 million net worth and you're like, damn, he had 3 agencies. Maybe I have 2, right? It's like that could be my blind belief is I need a third one. I think the reality is how did that individual achieve it?
Hard work.
Yeah. How did I'm not sure where to close it, but yeah, how did that individual, like what's the difference between 1 million and 100 million, right? It started with the lens and the belief in how they're going to see it.
Yeah, that vision.
Yeah.
Right now, I feel like the term that we hear a lot is, and don't get me wrong, I love it, but manifestation, right? Like people just want to manifest certain things, and I'm all for it, but hard work will get you there. Yeah, you got to visualize it, but the work you put in is what's gonna get you that manifestation. It's not just gonna happen because you speak it into existence, So
absolutely.
Yeah, like my one of my favorite sayings, and I have it because we are what we see. Like you do what you constantly see, and I'm constantly reminding myself to outwork them. I have this is on a little bracelet I have on my wrist, and then my phone, my alarm clock every day. It tells me what do you do it for.
Yeah.
And like just having those little reminders here and there throughout the day to kind of like bring you back to, all right, man, like, and get in line, check yourself. What are you really doing it for? Outwork them. What's your why? All these questions that constantly, if you keep seeing them, asking yourself, you're gonna be living a pretty purposeful life, day in and day out.
Absolutely. And I love that. And that is definitely someone I love to keep up with. We talked about routines. Is there and kind of more of fast fire, but favorite investment outside of real estate right now that whether you're in or not piques your curiosity?
Man, right now I just feel like it's such a crazy time with everything going on, right? With the markets and just it's crazy what's going on in the world right now. I mean, obviously COVID didn't help. And I think that what's pretty interesting right now, and it's been for a long time, is just kind of the crypto and like the stock market. Just it's a gamble that we feel like we're taking, but I've been paying that a little more attention. The last maybe like 2 years. I do believe that it'll be something pretty major in the next. I don't know. I think it'll be. Well, I don't want to say our main currency, but it's something worth looking into right now. And I ain't no expert, like I said earlier, but you buy when everyone else is selling. I feel like right now is a good time to get in there and get some stake in the crypto game, because it's only going to keep going up from here. There's no way that it's going to keep going on this downward trend. But that's what I would say. I mean, just do your research, do your homework, and if you're passionate about something, and invest the time, and everything comes with a risk, but if you do your homework, if you're putting in the time into it, chances are that you're gonna be successful with it.
Yep, I love it. Overarching big point, action has to be aligned at the same degree that we're manifesting and believing.
Right.
That's definitely something that's forgotten, and it took me some time. I leaned towards the manifestation and didn't necessarily know what that groove was of work, but I definitely learned the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
Like on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, and then annually, all of a sudden you start to become the luckiest fucking person in the room. And you don't know why, but and then you start to believe it, but genuinely, because you're only giving love, right? We're not coming here to selfishly do it, right? And I think one other one that I literally just learned in this past week, just reflecting, is, again, we talked about it right before we hit record, but surround yourself with people that are also playing the long game, right? I think it's absolutely important to have immediate returns and get into passive investments that pay you back bi-weekly or monthly. But at the same time, be around people that are playing the long game and get into business with people that are playing the long term too, because they're not looking at the superficial like BS. And I'm starting to realize, I think this applies to every investment, but in the Web3 world, it's absolutely true, because it attracts top talent, but they're like, are you going to be in this for some time? And it applies to everywhere. So the same type of leader that you attract, whether it's the female you introduce into your life or the next world-renowned business partner that you meet at a coffee shop after this call, or after we get done with this interview, right? they come all over the place, and living a life with some adventure and travel like you do. I know we both value it. Just a little bit of the unknown, man.
Yeah.
Keep living it.
Yeah.
Any last? How do you want to close it up? Is there a motto that really means a ton to you?
I live by so many different mottos. I feel like, but I did write a little something before coming, just about just life and how we only get one, and life is short, life is fleeting. But I feel like a lot of the times we live this life trying to please others and putting on this persona, this image of someone who is not even really who you are, And you do it a lot just living in a place like San Diego, man, or LA, New York, very superficial kind of people. So you start kind of emulating that and becoming it. But for me, it's just, you only get one life. You better live to the best of your capabilities, with some intention, with some purpose, and F everyone else's opinion. Like they're gonna judge. They're gonna judge you anyway. Might as well live your life at your own terms, doing what makes you happy. Someone else's opinion of success, of happiness, of love can be a completely different interpretation than what that means to you. So just stay true to yourself and find your happiness and find your why. I feel like everything else in between will sort itself out.
Absolutely. And that combination of everything you explained absolutely creates a sustainable belief that attracts. You become the magnet that attracts opportunities and good people, right? When you're putting the good things out in the world and you're aligning with the work and you have values like you do, and you're doing it for more than the dollar. It's to live and give a better life to people around us, the loved ones. I appreciate you. For anyone that wants to dive into George Rodriguez more, where can they connect with you?
You can give me a follow on Instagram at G_Rod21Wellness. Pretty long handle, but I'm sure you can find it through Conor, and then you can add me on there and send me any questions your way if you want. Hopefully you guys take something impactful, something meaningful from this podcast and apply it in your life.
We got a special treat today. This is a badass mofo. Like, you are someone I look up to like no other. You're a quality dude, and that's really what I look up to, right? You're a quality dude. You surround yourself. I see that you have those intentions, and you and me have had sporadic conversations together, and I realize, oh shit, there's a lot of depth. Like, you really do. You're building a legacy, man.
I appreciate that, man.
Let's do it.
And you are as well, brother.
Thank you. This is a good one.
Thanks for having me.
Boom. Hell yeah. How long did we go?